No idea where she comes from. All right, this meeting is being recorded. All right, hello everyone. I'm Dominique from Conscious Parenting with Astrology, and I'm here with Maria Riegger from Positive Parenting with Astrology YouTube channel. She's also a member of our group. I know that you've all probably talked to her in there. She offers some great insight all the time. She's the author of The Gemini Child, The Scorpio Child, and she does a lot of great tips and videos on those specifically. And because she's a Gemini, one of our resident Geminis, what better person to be talking about Gemini season and Mercury retrograde in Gemini with now, right? We did a few of these. We've done them over the past. We did the Mercury retrograde in Aquarius earlier. And so we thought we'd come back in and give you some more parenting tips and overall tips for the season. So we'll dive right in. I first want to just let everyone know sort of the details. So Mercury will officially go direct on Saturday, the 29th.
Go retrograde.
Go retrograde. Did I say direct?
Yes.
There you go. Mercury retrograde. There you go. Yes, we're in the shadow. As of May 15th, we went into the shadow. The 29th, it goes retrograde. June 22nd, it goes direct. And then it'll be out of the shadow by July 6th. Okay, so that's the whole enchilada, essentially. But the actual retrograde season portion is from the 29th of May to June 22nd. And we're looking at the degrees between 16 and 24 Gemini. So you can grab your chart or your child's chart and you can find those degrees and see what's happening there for you, what planets you might have there. And we'll talk about what's happening in those degrees beyond just the Mercury retrograde, because we are in eclipse season. We have our first eclipse of the year tomorrow, and they're big ones. They're big ones. And so Mercury's involved with the two that we have this season, so we can't not talk about them, right? So we're going to jump in with the significance of the Mercury retrograde, or the Mercury and the Mercury retrograde for the eclipse season. Maria has a lot of great tips and insight about the season as a whole and about Mercury retrograde as a whole. And then we'll get into sort of more in depth of your sign and what kind of tips maybe to look for you and of course your children. Yeah. So want to dive in, Maria?
Sounds good. Thank you, Dominique. Okay. Thanks again for having me. I always enjoy talking with you. It's always a lot of fun. And I'm the scattered Gemini with almost all my personal planets in Gemini, and this Gemini season, I'm even more scattered than usual, so I'm counting on you to keep me on track and not.
I will do my best, girl.
So you mentioned the lunar eclipse happening tomorrow, so it's really hard to talk about Mercury retrograde happening on the 29th without mentioning the lunar eclipse happening tomorrow, the 26th, in the sign of Sagittarius. It's also going to be the moon at the time will be squaring Jupiter, which, as we know, is the ruler of Sagittarius. So this is a very important event for kind of releasing old habits and old ways in which we were conditioned, or old triggers we have possibly from our childhood that we bring forward with us into adulthood. We really want to look at what we want to release from our lives that doesn't serve us in those terms, and what we want to bring forward. This is also a great time to manifest what you want more of in your life, because we had a grand air trine last Saturday, which was a wonderful time, involving the sign of Gemini, which was a wonderful time to put those manifestations in writing. So with that event, with the lunar eclipse happening tomorrow, where we're releasing these old patterns and ways of conditioning, you want to think about really carefully what you want to bring forward with you, what you want your life to be like. So when you're manifesting, you want to make sure you're not thinking about all the things that are wrong, quote unquote, with your life. You want to think about what you want your life to be like, what you want your house to be like, what you want your relationship to look like, what you want your relationship with your kids to look like, how you want to be as a parent. You want to think in those positive terms, and that will help you manifest those things. And it does happen. We could do a whole session on all the ways, all the things we've manifested in our lives, but that it does work. So think about those things. But now is not the time to be making significant decisions. As Mercury goes retrograde on the 29th, as Dominique said, you want to be gathering information, intel, thinking about things, processing things, writing things down, but you want to avoid making any significant decisions preferably until we're out of the shadow period on July 10th. Definitely you want to wait until Mercury goes direct. Yeah. If you're forced to make a decision, sometimes it happens. I was forced to buy a home when Uranus was scoring the moon, but I have that on my natal chart, so I was like, whatever, it doesn't make any difference. So sometimes we're forced to make decisions, and if that's the case, you have to make a decision about something during the retrograde. Think about it really carefully, and before you take the plunge. Okay.
And there can be just minor things that happen. Like I've had to forced to do things during Mercury retrograde or in the shadow period, and just little things, just be prepared for like little issues or making extra trips, second trips, it can be minor, just those little irritating things that come up, right? So it's not the end of the world. You have to live, right?
Absolutely. And those things obviously may not have significant repercussions. They may just be really annoying.
Right.
Tech annoyances, which I have a lot all the time. So anyway, when Mercury first entered the sign of Gemini, when it was still direct, so people who have Mercury in an air sign probably felt very comfortable with that. Now that Mercury is turning retrograde, people with Mercury in air sign, especially if you have Mercury in Gemini like I do, it's going to feel very different for you. It's going to feel a little bit more chaotic, like you're all over the place.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we like mix it up and actually do that as we go through? So you're talking about Gemini. So why don't we talk about the air signs as you're giving those things, and then we can do the other ones.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if you have Mercury in air sign natally, when Mercury was direct in Gemini, probably was very comfortable energy for you. Maybe you felt a little more scattered. But with a retrograde, Mercury retrograding in Gemini, the energy is going to be a little more chaotic. It's going to be a little more uncomfortable.
Right.
As always, with the retrograde, the energy is directed internally. So if you have Mercury in an air sign, you may have, Dominique mentioned earlier, you may have some writer's block. You may have even more trouble focusing than usual. And you
might just be too much. Like I've found myself already, I'm an Aquarius. So I've found myself already just having a laundry list of things I really am ambitious about doing during the retrograde. And I can tell already that I'm going to have to slow my roll and that I'm not going to get all that stuff done. I want to, I have best intentions. I've created my lists of all the things I've been wanting to work on, but I'm just reminding myself it might just be good to like just do some of the research, read some of the books I want to get the information to put into whatever project I'm working on. So I think that that's something I learned from your other video about the season was, yes, I'm like excited. There's a lot of these things, but I'm going to slow my roll or I'm going to burn myself out, like brain dead halfway through the day. And I can't really accomplish any of the things I want to.
Absolutely. So you mentioned writing things down. Anything, there's with Mercury being in Gemini, there's a ton of information available right now. So a ton of data. You're probably going to feel overwhelmed with that, especially if you have Mercury in an air sign natally. Write things down. Anything that occurs to you that you want to get done, write it down. Any information that occurs to you or that you discover that you think may be important to you, write it down, save it in your notes, app on your phone.
Right.
And so just the act of writing it down, bringing it out of your head, tends to give us a little bit less anxiety because now we have it committed to paper. You don't have to commit it to memory. You just cannot keep all these things in your head all the time. Even Gemini and Aquarius people, we cannot do that. Yeah. So write it down. That's a huge help. So we always talk about communication. We talk about Mercury retrograde. There's always the potential for miscommunications and misunderstandings. Mercury, he's a bit of a trickster. Anybody who's familiar with Greek and Roman mythology know Mercury's character or Hermes' character for Greek mythology. So sometimes during the retrograde, especially with Mercury retrograding in its home sign of Gemini, not only is there the possibility for miscommunications and misunderstandings, but there's also the possibility that what you say may come out in a very cutting or sarcastic or snarky way. It's just the way of Mercury sometimes. Yeah. You want to be very careful when talking to your partner, talking to your kids, that you want to watch your words, watch your tone, make sure you're not saying things that come out in a sarcastic way. Some kids are more sensitive than others. Dominique and I have water sign kids. I have to watch my language, especially. I can be very sarcastic. So you want to be very careful with that. Those words, those tones can be very hurtful. Right. To our kids and to our partners. And it's hard to kind of take those back. So you always, when you communicate, and you're going to feel compelled to communicate with Mercury being in Gemini, even with the retrograde, when you communicate, you want to make sure it's always coming from a place of love and affection. It's not criticism. It's, I want to help you. what can I do, right? You're always coming from a place of love, from a place of self-improvement, okay? So think about that. Pause. Let's go for almost any Mercury retrograde. Pause before you speak, think before you speak, consider your words and your tone carefully. But especially now because Mercury's in its home sign of Gemini.
Yeah.
One quick thing I want to say about the Gemini energy, I see this with Gemini moon children, and I think it's more pronounced with this retrograde with Mercury being in Gemini. Gemini moon children have this tendency they have to verbalize, because the moon rules our emotional life. They have to verbalize their whole thought process. And not everything that comes out of their mouths is their truth. Sometimes they like to test things by talking about them, or they're just verbalizing the entire thought process. And it's not that everything that they say is their truth. They're just thinking about things. And I used to be like this because my son is a Gemini moon. I used to freak out when he would say things, and then I would realize later, oh, he doesn't mean that. He's like testing it out, or he was even testing my reaction, or he was just thinking about it. And because I have a lot of Gemini moon people in my life, I've noticed this trait. So with Mercury retrograding in Gemini, I would think that this tendency is going to be more pronounced. So parents, especially with the kids, be very careful, because Gemini the air signs tend to be overreactive. So be very careful about not overreacting to things the kids say, especially if they're kids with a lot of a strong Mercury or strong Gemini energy in their charts. They may just be testing things out. They may just be thinking out loud. They may not mean 100% everything that they are verbalizing. So just remember that and be calm. Don't overreact. Just listen. And you can always ask questions, but just remember, you always want to come from a place where you're encouraging your kids to talk to you.
Cool. Okay, I have a question.
Sure.
So based on that, if we were to take a brief look at water signs, okay, because that's not a compatible nature, like what you're talking about, an air sign and water with moon. So what you just described, I feel like could also exist for people who are water signs, right? With this energy. So could you have a lot of that where you're like splurting out all your feelings, all your thoughts, and maybe you don't really mean them, but you need to get them out? So for people who are Cancer or Scorpio or Pisces, having a little bit of that you described, or have strong predominance in water, like could that manifest in a similar way?
I think so, because the water sign kids are always, they approach the world from a place of emotion, intuition, more so than air signs. They'll approach from a place of logic and detachment, right? So with this energy, the Mercury and Gemini, they're going to feel, everyone is going to feel compelled to communicate more, right? So that goes for water sign kids too. And they communicate about emotions. Like you said, they identify very strongly with their emotions and with the emotions of other people. So you can expect your kids to be more chatty in general, and you can expect the water sign kids to be chattier about their emotions. They may have a lot of emotions coming up to the surface.
Right.
They feel compelled to communicate. And that's a good thing, because a lot of water sign kids, I know my son is Scorpio, very private, secretive energy.
Right. So this could be a good time.
This is a good time for them to talk to you about things that are feeling, or any deep issues they may be working through and they need your help with. So you can expect that. So I really recommend that you be open and receptive to when your kids want to talk to you, and they may want to talk to you more often than usual. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And this goes to what we were talking about before, not overcommitting, slowing down during this retrograde season, and give your kids space, give your partner space to come to you, talk to you about anything that they need to.
Yeah.
So there's a real tendency with this, we're going to talk a little bit later about, Venus is in Gemini right now. Mercury is about to retrograde in Gemini. The sun is in Gemini. All the Gemini energy makes there's a real risk to overcommit socially and otherwise. The Gemini energy compels you to say yes without thinking about it to things people ask you to do. So we want to be very careful about not overcommitting and not burning out our energy, so that we don't have the energy to do the projects we want to do and spend the energy on those areas of our lives that are really important. Our families, right? Our self-care, our own projects, our writing projects, whatever it is. So before you commit to whether it's social activities or helping people or other things or other projects, think carefully about whether you have or you want to dedicate the time and energy to those things.
Right.
So this is a time where you really need to be open and receptive to when your kids especially want to come talk to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yes, that is good. That's good.
Right. So, other recommendations. This is a great time with Mercury being in Gemini and the other planets too. A great time for learning
Mhm.
new courses, whether online courses or hands-on courses. This is a great way to kind of burn off some of that excessive mental energy that pretty much all of us are experiencing right now. Cardio exercise is a great way to burn off that energy. That is like my best way of dealing with my excessive
Yeah.
mental energy and overthinking, because that physical burnout, physical exhaustion usually slows down that excessive mental energy too.
Mm.
So then you kind of get a break. Meditation also helps you slow down the overthinking, and especially if you do the cardio first and then the meditation, right?
Yeah.
It slows down your thinking, it calms you down, it helps you focus. Those are all things that we could get more of, we could benefit from more
Yeah.
often during this retrograde season. We talked about slowing down, not overcommitting. The Gemini energy is also a very rushed, hurried energy. It's going to make you feel hurried or feel like you want to rush. I recommend you slow down, you pre-plan, you prepare, build an extra time with your kids, especially getting your kids ready or having them do things. Don't rush them. Constantly rushing the kids just makes them a little more prone to be anxious. So we don't want that, right? At the end of the day. And with this energy, it makes us a little more anxious, makes us a little more prone to be rushed and hurried. So slow down, build an extra time to your schedule to the extent that you can, and hold space for your kids. So those are kind of the main areas, the main things I would recommend, especially during
And you were talking about with learning that it's also a good time to, because there's not a need to commit, to experiment with things, trying something new and not being afraid to, oh, it's new, you can't do it now, it's Mercury retrograde, but really this is a good time because you don't have to overcommit. Just try something and see if you like it or you don't. I thought that was a really good point, because you're like, oh, maybe it's not a good time to start something new, but if you're experimenting and you're seeing if it's something you like or don't like, it could be a good time.
Absolutely. Take a drawing class or have to sign the kids up for something and tell them you don't have to commit to this. If you don't like it, you don't have to continue to do it. But we're at least going to try something new.
Right? Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely. Without the pressure to or obligation to commit to like a new course or a new, I don't know, a new activity. Exactly. Great.
Right. Yeah, I'm signing Joe. I just signed Joe back up for baseball, which I'm thrilled about. So we're going to have baseball this summer, but he hasn't played for over, a year now, like, 2 seasons, and he's moved up into minor. So I'm like wondering, will he really love it still? Or will this be the time where he's like, yeah, I'm not really into baseball anymore? Like, I don't know. He's excited to play, but
either way is fine, right?
Either way is fine.
Right.
But it still needs to get out there and have some fun this summer, something to do, get active again is important. And then if he goes, I think I'm done, I'll be like, okay.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah, you find something else to do. Right. I mean, that's in a sense when the kids and adults, we find stuff that we don't like, it's helpful because it narrows it down for us, and then we can, commit the energy to the things that we do like.
Right.
It's okay not to like something.
Right.
It's totally fine not to like an activity or say I just don't feel like doing this anymore.
Totally exactly. Fine. Exactly. Totally. So what about fire signs?
Okay, talk about fire. So fire and air are compatible elements.
Yep.
Both masculine energy signs, so very activity oriented.
I think that's where burnout could come in, right? Be careful.
Oh yeah, because air feeds the fire. And interestingly, this is something I thought about relatively recently. Fire cannot exist without air.
That's right.
Interesting. It's an element that cannot exist by itself, right? It's not an element that you typically see. You don't see a lot of solitary people with a lot of fire in their chart. I've noticed this throughout my life. They usually surround themselves with people or in relationships or have a lot of friendships or something. It's an element that cannot exist by itself. Mm-hmm. So on its own, it's an interesting point to think about. So right. So with Mercury being in Gemini, it's probably more comfortable to fire signs than to water signs and earth signs because it's going to feed the activity. And because there's so much air energy right now, like you said, it's probably there's a real risk for fire sign people to have burnout, to feel the need they're compelled to do these endless activities, to stay active, and there's a real risk for burnout. So again, a lot of the recommendations that we've been talking about applies to fire sign people here. So slow down, think about where you want to spend your energy, where you want your focus to be, and dedicate it to those things. And it's fine to engage in a lot of activity. Just make sure you are resting, you are recharging, you're eating and sleeping, you're exercising, all those things.
I was thinking about the, the Leos and Sag, like the partiers and just want to go. And you're like, you want to say yes to everything. There's like social things to do now where the restrictions lifting. You're like, yeah, on a party. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I can't recover the way I used to. I'm tired. I shouldn't have gone to that event, and you're like, okay, gotta slow my roll.
Exactly. Real risk of burnout.
Yeah. And then same thing with the kids. If they're like really want to go, you have to kind of, okay, but we do have to chill today. Like we'll play Saturday, we'll go do all these places. And then like Sunday's my chill day. Let's
right. The parent, because the kids don't always recognize the signs of burnout. So parents teach them, hey, you need a break, or you need a break from the screen, or you need a break at home. Because we've been out doing all these things and you're tired. As the kids get older, they can recognize those signs more and more. But when they're, elementary school or younger, they don't recognize those signs as well, or they have a hard time. They have a hard time focusing and not understand that it's because they are overstimulated and they need like to be alone, resting right now.
Yeah.
So things like that. Yeah, definitely. Fire sign kids need a lot of activity. Not gonna lie. But you need to buffer that with periods of rest. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome.
For sure.
And then what about earth signs?
Earth signs, right. So earth and air, traditionally not a compatible element, especially for our Taurus friends. The fixed earth is not going to feel, this energy is not going to feel very comfortable because it's so scattered, right? And fixed earth is so stable. So please understand that this energy is temporary. It will pass. These are all periods we all go through. And the energy will pass and it will not feel as scattered and as restless and as exhausting.
I felt like leaning into Taurus season, like really bringing the sort of grounding energy and the daily practices that are good for keeping us stable and secure can actually help us manage that that blowing around. So that's, I think, what the Taurus person or the earth person can do is like, remember my stable place so I can go with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sleep more if you need to. Meditate. Take a walk outside, right? Experience nature, all those things. Like treat yourself to a good meal at home or wherever, or outside restaurant. Yeah.
Garden, get your hands dirty,
absolutely. Ground, like you said, ground yourself. All those activities will help you, stay
Get your kids to do the same, get them involved in things outside, projects and planting. It's spring, that'll be good too.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Do you want to jump into Venus now?
Yes. So it's hard to talk about Mercury retrograde without also mentioning that, as we said, the sun is currently in Gemini. Venus is currently in Gemini. Not for much longer. Venus is going to be in the sign of Cancer in beginning of June?
June 2nd, he moves. He moves.
Okay. So we only have about another week of Venus in Gemini. So we've been experiencing this energy. Venus is the planet that traditionally rules the sign of Libra and Taurus too in traditional astrology. So Venus rules one-to-one relationships, the give and take relationships. So with Venus being in Gemini, communication has definitely been emphasized in relationships. So again, make sure you're probably going to feel compelled to communicate with your partner, with your children. Make sure your communication is always coming from this place of love and affection, not criticism. Watch your tone, watch your words, everything we've said already. The Venus being in Gemini also gives kind of a more friendly social vibe to relationships. Intellectual connection is also emphasized or may even be necessary. If you have that placement natally in your chart like I do, you need that intellectual connection, right? Also, Venus being in Gemini, Venus is not super comfortable there because it gives Venus more of a fickle, indecisive quality. So you may, again, if you have that placement natally like I do, you'll know you're moody already. You'll know this about yourself. But if you don't, with the transit, you'll know that some days you may be in a bad mood or you may feel a certain way, and that mood will pass. The next day you may feel a totally different way about that issue. So don't make any snap decisions, especially during eclipse and retrograde season, because that Venus and Gemini energy will give us all a little bit more of a fickle, indecisive feeling. So make sure you're not making snap decisions based on this transitory feeling, because chances are in a few days or hours or minutes, the mood will change.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to say, the Venus and Gemini energy also gives us more of a detached feeling regarding relationships, whether with your partner or with your kids. This is a very good thing because Gemini, one of the things air signs are very good at are kind of being detached and putting themselves in the shoes of other people and understanding other people's point of view. Air signs are not the best at automatically empathizing with other people like water signs are, but they are very good at detaching, stepping outside of themselves, stepping in the shoes of the other person and understanding the other person's point of view. Even if they don't empathize with it automatically, they're very good at understanding that. So you can use this energy to look at your parenting and consider, am I parenting how I want to parent? Is my relationship with my kids how I want it to be or how I think it should be? Am I doing the right thing for my kids? Am I parenting, appropriately for my children? Because all kids are different. We may parent differently for the child, and that's fine. But you want to think about whether there's anything that you could restructure or change about yourself, how you're parent with regards to your kids, and with regards to your partner. Think about, how can I be a better partner? How can I make more of an effort? Because remember, we cannot change other people, right? We don't have control over other people's behavior. We have control over our behavior, and we can change things about ourselves. So this whole period from the eclipse to the retrograde to the next eclipse in Gemini coming up on June 10th, this is a great time to think about how can you improve?
Yes.
What triggers do you want to leave behind? What baggage do you just want to shed by the roadside, as I like to say? And how can you improve as a parent, as a partner, as a human being? So the Venus and Gemini energy is great for that, about thinking how putting yourself in the place of your partner, in the place of your kids, and thinking about understanding their points of view. And maybe then you'll think about, oh, okay, I understand why they do this.
Yeah.
And one thing one thing I read a while ago that really resonated with me is that think about, if you really want to empathize and understand someone else's point of view, think about the fact that everything they do is for their own survival. Like everything they do is so they can get through the day.
Yeah.
Whether it's play video games or nap or whatever. You may think, oh, playing video games, he plays video games all day, or my kid likes the game, he's a big gamer. Well, maybe that's his outlet.
Right.
Maybe that's because I'm a big gamer too. And one thing I like about gaming, when you're gaming, you are not thinking about anything else except the game, right? It is complete focus. And I love that. I'm not thinking about the 3 million things I have to do tomorrow. I'm not thinking about how I said something the other week that I regretted. I'm not thinking about anything of that. So I can see the draw of that for kids. So think about that, because I hear a lot of parents criticize activities that kids like, and that bothers me, because think about it, if your partner criticizes an activity you like to do, how would that make you feel? I mean, you and your partner don't have to do all the same stuff. You and your kids don't have to do all the same stuff. But please don't criticize activities your kids like. Certainly not in front of the kids.
Yeah.
You can think anything, right? I think a lot of things too. I mentally roll my eyes at my kids sometimes, but I don't do it in front of them. But you don't want to criticize in front of your kids, because that's relative. What they enjoy doing is relative. So that's just kind of a thing I want to throw out there. And but then as Venus moves into Cancer, we're going to be a little more sensitive. So the Venus and Gemini energy makes us a little bit less sensitive, which is why it's a good time to kind of have, any conversations you need to have in your relationship with your kids. Think about how you can improve. And then when Venus moves into Cancer, that'll bring a little bit more of a sensitivity to relationships, which is a great thing. Cancer being associated with the 4th house of home, house of family. That's going to emphasize those kind of themes in this give and take of relationships. And it's kind of a very loving, sensitive energy. It's a great energy for relationships, kind of draws you closer. So that's going to be a nice change when Venus moves into Cancer, I think.
I think that also I was going to ask you about that with the letting go stuff. And it also, I think, does point to the time that Venus is in Cancer as well, is looking at, you were mentioning earlier about our childhood programming, or like our belief systems and things that we brought into our own parenting based on the way we were raised, and things that don't work anymore that we don't want to. Like often if we were raised in a good environment and we liked our parents, we want to emulate that. And if we weren't, we want to do the opposite or something different. But at the same time, it really has to do with your child. You need to understand your child and yourself and sort of what they need regardless. But I think that being aware of what we want to let go of that maybe we've recognized now doesn't work for our kid, whether we liked it or not. Like You might have enjoyed sports when you were young and thought it was great for the kids and all kids should do it, but your kid's a water sign, doesn't enjoy that, and it's not for him. So well, okay, I have to find something different. So it's okay. It's totally okay. So I think a big part of that is just, if we loved our childhood, great, but it doesn't work for our kid, that's okay. Or if we didn't, and you've got to create a whole new sort of approach to parenting based on the child you have or the relation in order to keep your relationship healthy, it's having compassion and realizing, okay, it's okay. Live and learn. These things don't work, or I don't want to bring that into my parenting. I don't have to beat myself up. I just have to make a choice. Then I'm going to let that go. I'm going to do it different, And I think with the eclipse on the 10th in Gemini, you've got like this one tomorrow, Mercury's a little off. He's involved and he's still in doing it, like, big role, but he's right there with the eclipse on June 10th. And then Venus is off in Cancer. So it's, again, being nurturing and kind about those things that are coming up, and when we were talking about this earlier about the new moon annual solar eclipse, new moons, we like to set new intentions, but it's eclipse. So it's like, set those intentions of what I'm going to release, what I'm going to let go of, and what I'm going to honor worked for me or didn't, but I'm not going to hold on to it anymore. I'm going to create a new approach that works for my family or that works for my life, or accept the timing of the way things are going, and also start to really trust what you've learned, what your life experience has brought to you, right? And what works for you, and not listening to what everyone else's opinions are or what the world is saying, but just really getting back into like, what do I feel? What do I think? What's true for me? What's true for my family? And I'm going to live my life from there, So I think that's a big role that Mercury's playing in this eclipse season. I think that's why it was so important to talk about it, because it's not a typical retrograde. This is a retrograde during a very profound, pivotal, shifting time for all of us. So really rethinking about the way we communicate and how we share our thoughts and beliefs with others. I'm an Aquarius, so I'm like, live and let live, think what you want, make your own decisions, but not everybody's like that, So it's, I think it is a big time about really respecting other people's opinions. And like you said, air signs have a little bit more ability to detach and see other people's opinions. But it's not easy for everyone to let go of past programming or habits or ideas that have just worked, or they've stuck to, or they're afraid to try something new. So I think it's having grace and just being willing to like see what happens.
Right.
Let go, release, surrender. That's what that Jupiter in Pisces square is like. Let go and take the pressure off and see what comes. See what, what evolves out of that.
Right. And remember, Jupiter being in Pisces, glad you brought that up. The 12th house, which is associated with Pisces, as we know, that's an open gate. Like
right.
any transits involving the 12th house, really good time to manifest what you want. Like really good time to think about how you want everything we talked about, how you want your parenting to be, how you want your relationship with your kids to be, how you want all your relationships to be, your house, your job, your income level. Yep. Think about how you want them to be. And to your point, my message to parents is like, do not let anyone else tell you how to parent.
Yep.
I can't stand that. You should do this, you should do that. Or, sometimes, and I hate to bring it up, because I brought up in a video on my YouTube channel recently that like, even teachers, sometimes you're finding yourself going head to head with teachers about your kid, because, my hat's off to teachers, but they're it's not their job, and it shouldn't be, to, make sure your child is emotionally healthy. That's the parent's job, but the teachers do have to, they're about controlling classroom behavior.
Yeah.
But to certain kids, like my kid, who's very independent and outspoken and questions authority, all traits that I strongly encourage, that means that sometimes he gets in trouble
right
at school for things I don't think he should get in trouble for. And you're going to find yourself, if you used to be a people pleaser like I used to be, and you have kids, you're going to find that you better start standing up for yourself, because you're going to have to stand up for your kids. You're going to have to. And that includes when other people tell you how to parent, tell them, hey, thanks for the tip, but I'm good.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why we do parenting tips. Yeah. Offer insight for you to do with what you like, right?
Exactly what you you know, you decide how you take the information going forward.
Right.
As far as
Right.
of it, like
Yeah.
you said, every kid's different. So you
Yeah.
gotta
I
think
agree with
about
that. There's definitely things like I feel bad for teachers that a lot of them do fall into this being required to like raise your kids, you know, these poor
right.
kids who don't come from a stable home, right? And that's too much for kids. But then, I mean, for teachers, but then when you have kids like, I have a rule follower and I know he can be a little bit, you know, obnoxious when he sees other kids not following the rules, right? But at the same time, you need to support a child who follows rules. So if he's doing what he's supposed to and letting someone know, hey, this person is not doing that and they're in my space when they shouldn't be, like, for example, distancing or something. And then they're like, oh, yeah, we'll just go over there, like, and blows it off. You know, there was a situation in school and the principal had called and then she said, oh, Joseph is so mature and he explained everything that happened. It was like talking to an adult. I mean, congratulations. It was so lovely. So I was like, oh, thanks, you know, but at the same time I said, but can I just say one thing? You know, I know it can, you know, I have to tell Joseph to stay in his lane because he's not like the principal of everyone following the rules. But when he sees something that's happening that he's involved with and he tells the proper people without being the tactical, but just making someone aware, if he doesn't see something happen or know that's been handled, he doesn't feel supported. Right. Yeah. And he's not there. He's gonna be like, I'm not going to, well, they're doing something wrong. Or he's going to start like, why should I follow rules? Because it doesn't make a difference. So it's like, you need to make sure that your teachers and your, you know, the people in authority are respecting and showing that your child is supported. Maybe that child got spoken to when he wasn't around. Fine. But let him know we took care of that. We talked to him. You're good. Thank you for being honest. Whatever it is, it shows, hey, I did something good and I shared what I was feeling and I helped and I was supported, you know, and that's a way different message, I think, than like, no, yeah, well, go sit over there then if they're not following the rules. It's like,
because I mean, especially if one kid is in somebody else's space, that's a personal issue. Like, you're in my space, and regardless of whatever social distancing or whatever, that kid has the right to not have somebody else in his space.
Right.
And you're trusting an adult with information, and then, like you say, if nothing is done, you know, then you don't feel supported, right? And if, you know, that's a parent, it's even worse because the parent, like I say all the time, if the parents do not support the kids' best interest, who is going to?
Yes. And there has to be a fine line there too, because I do think there's an issue with some parents will think that it's always somebody else's kid or always something else. Like I think it's important to say, okay, what happened, and have children take the responsibility in their role in things. Right. Because I feel bad for teachers and the authorities at the school who have to like deal with, well, why did you make my kid do that? Or why did, you know, and blaming them for the situation. So there has to be a working relationship with even our teachers and things like that. I think that's where I love that if parents can get involved in their child's education and their teacher relationships, you know, not to be helicopter, not to be like over and involved, but to just be aware of the relationship. And I think that comes too with having children who are open enough to communicate. Like you have your quieter kids who don't want to share what's happening at school. That's tough. There needs to be like a safe outlet at home so you can really know what's happening there. So you can support your child in environments with, or help give them the skills to problem solve and manage situations when you're not there. Because isn't that the goal, right? We got to teach them how to get along in life without us.
Right. You know? Exactly.
So yeah, those are really good examples and tips. Yeah, it's a big time. It's a big time, and these are really big energies.
A lot going on. Yeah, so everybody just slow down. Like we said, this energy is temporary. It won't last forever. So, but we're heading into summer, so hopefully people can take, you know, some breaks.
Yeah, some vacations or trips.
Right. So, but that's everything pretty much that I had, Dominique, on tips. If there's anything else you want to bring up, we can.
No, I think that's good. I mean, I think that we gave them the tips because we even had talked throughout it about the kids, you know, just, I remember thinking about this last night in terms of the kids and we expecting them to be more verbal, maybe a few more squabbles and verbal battles than usual. Also keeping them active, like if they do have a lot of extra energy, whether it's getting into an outlet, learning outlet or something, or just scheduling some play dates, getting them back together with old friends if there's freedom to do so now, taking little trips to the beach or getting out for fresh air. Oh, and that's what I was going to say, is that with mutable air, Gemini season, like we talked about in the temperament workshop, that mutability tends to lean to distractibility in children. So there's heavy distractibility for when there's a lot of this element of of air and mutability. So we're all kind of like, can be all over the place and easily distracted. So focusing is tough. So it's going to be extra tough for the little ones. So taking lots of breaks, giving the kids time to get their words and thoughts and feelings out, especially if we're in a hurry to get to the next thing or the thing on the list or the place to be, right? So like I said in that today, like those little deep breaths, you know what I mean? And give your child some space and time, some fresh air, and, let them have that extra time to communicate their thoughts or feelings, or, if they're having a tiff with a sibling, it's like, okay, Johnny, what are you feeling? What do you want to say? And then give the other one a chance to have what their say, and, start to teach them that respect of really listening and hearing our siblings or our friends talk, so we can work things out. I always tell Joseph, whenever we're going through something, I'm always like, everybody's feeling this in a different way. Not everybody handles things the way you do. Not everybody's as sensitive as you are. Like, always saying, this is okay. All right. And we have to have compassion for the way other people handle things, or kids learning the rules still, or how to behave, or, or what you are working on. Right. So, but I would think definitely a big one for this season is breathe. Take time out to breathe and meditate, fresh air, lots of breaks. And if you've got a lot of things on your list, and you're like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to have a break, and then we're going to do a few more things, and we're going to go outside and have lunch on the patio and like take a break. I do that a lot with Joe. It's like, okay, I got to get away from my office for a minute. Let's have lunch out on the patio, have some fresh air, and then get back to it.
Right.
So I'm not getting mentally burnt out. And then what do? I end up snapping at him because I'm like short fused. So I think those are some good tips for the kids. I think overall we've given a good sense of the energy of what we're headed into and what Mercury retrograde is going to bring this time. So I'll share this in the group, and then put your other videos there. Okay. Yeah. From YouTube. Yeah. And everybody follow her over on YouTube. It's Positive Parenting, right?
Yes, Positive Parenting with Astrology, or you can search my name, Maria Riegger.
Yeah.
I'll leave the link in the comments too.
Okay, cool. And then if anyone has questions about anything we spoke about today, or want to sort of share or add your own tips or thoughts about what we're headed into, or how it's manifesting for your child or yourself, we'd love to keep the conversation going in the group, so that we can always help keep supporting each other and helping each other through these times, these intense energies. So, but Maria, thank you so much for doing this with me again and reaching out. This is awesome. I think we should make it a definite thing. I know we'll do the Mercury retrograde throughout the year, but anytime, there's something like this going on, I think we should jump on and do what we can to help the parents out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my pleasure. We'll talk soon. Okay. Thanks, awesome. Maria.
Take care.
Bye. Bye, everyone.